The crash that changed everything. The emergency klaxons screamed through the corridors of the Stellar Vanguard as Captain Damon Cross gripped his command chair. Sparks flew from damaged control panels while his crew fought desperately to maintain hull integrity. The alien energy weapons had torn through their shields like tissue paper, leaving his ship bleeding atmosphere into the cold void of space. "Captain, we're losing main power," shouted his communications officer over the chaos. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 6. We need to abandon ship." Damon's jaw tightened as he watched the tactical display. The enemy vessels were closing in. For the killing blow, his ship, the Intrepid Dawn, had been on a routine patrol mission when they stumbled into what appeared to be a trap. 3 sleek alien warships had emerged from behind an asteroid field, their weapons already charging. "Negative on the evacuation," Damon replied, his voice steady despite the dire circumstances. "All escape pods are compromised. We're taking her down to the surface of that moon. Prepare for crash landing." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances, but followed their captain's orders without question. Damon had earned their trust through countless battles, and they knew he would never abandon them. As the ship plummeted through the atmosphere of the barren moon below, explosions rocked the hull. The last thing Damon remembered was the sickening sensation of falling and the sound of twisting metal. Awakening to Violet Eye's pain was the first sensation that greeted. Consciousness slowly returned. His head throbbed with each heartbeat, and he could taste blood on his lips. The acrid smell of burning circuits and scorched metal filled his nostrils. Slowly he opened his eyes and found himself staring up at a pale orange sky streaked with purple clouds. He tried to move but froze when he felt the cold touch of metal against his throat. A blade, razor-sharp and gleaming, pressed just firmly enough to draw a thin line of blood. Following the weapon upward, his gaze met the most striking pair of violet eyes he had ever seen. The creature holding the blade was undeniably alien, yet hauntingly beautiful. Her skin had a subtle blue-green tint that seemed to shimmer in the strange light of the foreign sun. High cheekbones and an angular face gave her an aristocratic appearance. While silver hair cascaded down her shoulders like liquid starlight, she wore form-fitting dark armor that accentuated her lithe athletic build. "You are awake, human," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality despite the threat in her words. "I am Nixira of the Voidwalkers, and you are my prisoner." Damon studied her face, noting the intelligence behind those remarkable eyes. Despite his precarious situation, he found himself oddly calm. Perhaps it was the head injury, or maybe something deeper, but he felt no fear looking into her alien features. "Well then, Nixira of the Voidwalkers," he replied, his voice rough but steady. "I'm Captain Damon Cross of the Terran Defense Force, and I have to say, if I'm going to die on some nameless moon, at least I get to look at something beautiful." While it happens, the bold reply that changed everything, Nixira's eyes widened slightly at his unexpected response. She had interrogated countless human prisoners before, and they always reacted with fear, anger, or desperate pleading. Never had one complimented her appearance while she held a blade to his throat. Her grip on the weapon wavered almost imperceptibly. "You mock me, human," she said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. "Your kind knows nothing of beauty. You see only conquest and destruction." Damon shifted slightly, wincing as pain shot through his ribs. Several were definitely broken. "I'm not mocking you," he said sincerely. "In fact, I'm wondering why someone so clearly intelligent and striking is wasting her time hunting humans on a dead rock in space." The blade pressed closer to his throat, drawing another drop of blood. "I hunt because it is my purpose. Your species threatens the balance of the galaxy. You expand without regard for other life forms. You take what is not yours." "Maybe some of us do," Damon admitted, his gaze never leaving hers. "But not all of us. I joined the Defense Force to protect colonies from raiders and pirates. I've never fired on a civilian target in my life. Hell, half my crew isn't even human." Nixira studied his face intently, searching for deception. Her people were skilled at reading body language and detecting lies. What she saw in his expression was honesty, perhaps even regret. This was not what she had expected from a human military officer. Your ship attacked our patrol vessels, she accused, though with less conviction than before. My ship was ambushed, Damon corrected gently. We were running silent on a standard patrol route when your people opened fire without warning. We barely had time to raise shields before they started tearing us apart. A moment of truth, the alien Huntress sat back on her heels, the blade still at his throat but with notably less pressure. Around them, the wreckage of his ship smoldered, in the distance, sending columns of black smoke into the alien sky. Nexara's own vessel was nowhere to be seen, suggesting she had arrived separately from the attack fleet. I am a tracker, she said finally. I follow the scent of human technology across the void. When ships like yours enter our territory, I'm sent to eliminate the survivors and gather intelligence. And how's that working out for you so far? Damon asked with a slight smile that somehow managed to be charming despite their circumstances. You are different, Nexira admitted, her violet eyes narrowing as she studied him. Other humans beg or threaten, or try to bargain, speak of their importance, their families, their right to live. You simply accept your fate while telling. Me, I'm beautiful. Either you are insane, or you are playing some deeper game. Damon's expression grew serious. No games, Nexira. I'm a soldier. I've faced death before, and I know when the odds are against me. But I'm also a man who appreciates beauty in all its forms. The way the light catches your skin, the intelligence in your eyes, the grace of your movements, even the efficiency with which you hold that blade, it's all quite remarkable. An unexpected connection for the first time since she had begun her hunt, Nexira found herself truly uncertain. Her training had prepared her for every possible human response except genuine appreciation. The way he looked at her was not lustful or calculating, but admiring in a way that made her feel oddly self-conscious. You seek to confuse me with flattery, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. I seek to live a few more minutes, Damon replied honestly. But that doesn't make what I'm saying any less true. Tell me, when was the last time someone looked at you and saw beauty instead of a weapon? The question struck her like a physical blow. In her culture, she was respected for her skills, feared for her efficiency, and valued for her loyalty. But beautiful. The concept was foreign to her world of assassination and warfare. I am a tool of war, she said stiffly. Beauty is irrelevant. To my function, maybe to your superiors, Damon said softly. But not to you. I can see it in your eyes. You're more than what they've made you into. Nexira's hand trembled almost imperceptibly. The human's words resonated with thoughts she had long suppressed. In quiet moments between missions, she sometimes wondered what her life might have been like if she had been born into a different caste, a different role. Now this alien was voicing those forbidden thoughts aloud. The first crack in the wall. You know nothing of my life, she whispered, but the blade moved away from his throat by several inches. I know you're here alone, Damon observed. Tracker of your obvious skill could have called in the kill shot from orbit. Instead, you came down to the surface. You wanted to see your prey up close. That suggests curiosity, and curiosity is the beginning of wisdom. Nexira stood abruptly, pacing a few steps away while keeping the weapon trained on him. Her mind raced as she processed this unprecedented situation. Every instinct told her to complete her mission and eliminate the human. But something else, something she had never felt before, urged her to listen. My people have fought yours for 3 standard cycles, she said, her back to him. In that time I have killed 17 human soldiers. Each died begging or cursing, or trying to bargain. You are the first to speak to me as if I were more than an instrument of death, because you are more, Damon said earnestly. I can see it in the way you move, the way you think. You're an artist, and warfare is just the canvas you've been given. But that doesn't mean it's the only canvas you'll ever have. When she turned to face him again, there were tears glistening in her violet eyes. If I let you live, my people will consider me a traitor. If I kill you, I will have destroyed the first being in cycles who has seen me as more than a killer. Choice that changes everything. Damon slowly pushed himself into a sitting position, ignoring the pain from his injuries. Then don't choose, he said. Not yet. My ship's emergency beacon was damaged in the crash. No one knows where I am. We could have time to figure this out together. Time for what? Nexira asked, though she had already lowered her weapon completely.
Time?
To prove that not all humans are conquerors. Time to show that not all of your people are killers. Time to discover what happens when two people from opposite sides of a war decide to trust each other instead of fighting. The alien Huntress stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. In the distance, the twin suns of the system were beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The beauty of the moment was not lost on either of them. "You could be a spy," she said finally. "This could all be an elaborate deception designed to lower my guard." "It could be," Damon agreed. "Just like you could be planning to torture information out of me before killing me slowly. I don't think either of us is that kind of person, are we?" Nyxara's lips curved in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "No," she admitted, "we are not." The beginning of something new as the alien sun set and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Nyxara finally sheathed her blade. The gesture was symbolic as much as practical, representing a choice that would echo across the galaxy. "I'm going against everything I have been taught," she said, settling down beside him. "Superiors will consider this the gravest form of treachery." "Mine won't be thrilled either," Damon replied with a rueful smile. "Fraternizing with the enemy is generally frowned upon in the military." "Is that what we are doing?" Nyxara asked, her violet eyes meeting his. "Fraternizing?" Damon considered the question seriously. "I think we're doing something much more dangerous. Than that, I think we're trying to understand each other." As the temperature began to drop with the setting of the sun's necks, Enira moved closer to share body heat. The practical gesture felt charged with possibility, to beings from different worlds finding common ground in the most unlikely of circumstances. "Tell me about your world," she said softly. "Not the propaganda, not the military briefings. Tell me what it's really like to be human." And so, under the alien stars of a nameless moon, Captain Damon Cross began to share his stories, while Nyxara of the Voidwalkers listened with growing fascination. Neither realized they were taking the first steps on a journey that would challenge everything they believed about love, loyalty, and the possibility of peace between the stars. The blade that had been held to his throat now lay forgotten in the dust. While two hearts that should have been enemies began the slow, dangerous process of falling in love, survival, and trust, the alien moon's twin suns rose slowly over the horizon, casting long shadows across the crash site where Damon and Nyxara had spent their first night together. The temperature had dropped drastically during the dark hours, forcing them to huddle close for warmth. Neither had slept much, both hyper-aware of the other's presence and the unprecedented nature of their situation. Damon stirred first, his injuries making movement painful. Nyxara was instantly alert, her warrior training evident in how quickly she assessed their surroundings for threats. The intimacy of their shared warmth during the cold night created an unspoken tension between them. "We need to find shelter," Nyxara said, her practical nature taking precedence. "And water. This moon has harsh weather cycles, and another storm system is approaching from the west." Damon nodded, attempting to stand despite his broken ribs. Nyxara moved to help him, her hands gentle but efficient as she supported his weight. The contact sent unexpected electricity through both of them, a reminder that beneath their roles as soldier and huntress, they were simply male and female drawn to each other. There, Nyxara pointed to a series of caves visible in the rocky cliffs about a kilometer away. "Natural shelter. My scans indicate a water source nearby as well." As they made their way across the barren landscape, Damon couldn't help but admire the fluid grace of Nyxara's movements. Every step was purposeful, efficient, yet possessed of a natural elegance that spoke to something deeper than mere training. She moved like liquid starlight given form. "You're staring," Nyxara observed without looking back, though there was no reproach in her voice. "Guilty as charged," Damon admitted. "Never seen anyone move like you do. It's like watching art in motion." A flush of darker blue crossed Nyxara's cheeks, the alien equivalent of a blush. "In my culture, such observations between unmatched individuals would be considered inappropriate." "Good thing we're not in your culture, then," Damon replied with a smile that made her pulse quicken in ways she didn't fully understand. Deeper revelations, the cave they found was more spacious than expected, with multiple chambers leading deeper into the cliff face. A small stream of crystal-clear water trickled through one corner, providing the fresh water they desperately needed. Nyxira used her advanced technology to scan for harmful bacteria, while Damon gathered what dry vegetation he could find for bedding as they settled into their temporary home. The forced intimacy of their situation created opportunities for deeper conversation. Nyxira found herself opening up about her life in ways she never had before, while Damon shared stories of Earth that painted humanity in shades far different from the enemy propaganda she had been fed. I was selected for the Voidwalker program when I was barely past adolescence, Nyxira explained as they shared a meal of emergency rations. My reflexes, my ability to track, my emotional control, all deemed suitable for creating the perfect hunter. I never had a choice in what I became. Choice is a luxury many of us don't get, Damon replied thoughtfully. I joined the military because my colony was attacked by raiders when I was 17. Lost my parents, my younger sister. Figured if I was going to fight, it might as well be to protect others from going through what I did. The revelation created a moment of shared understanding. Both had been shaped by violence, molded into weapons by circumstances beyond their control. Yet here they sat, finding peace in each other's company despite being natural enemies. Would you have chosen? Damon asked. If you could have been anything, what would you have wanted to be? Nyxira's violet eyes grew distant as she considered the question. I used to watch the star singers on my homeworld. They were artists who created sculptures of light using harmonic frequencies. Their work was beautiful, ephemeral, touching something, pure in the soul. I thought perhaps I might have liked to create beauty instead of death. You still could, Damon said softly. Yes. This war won't last forever. When it ends, you could find a new path. Could I? Nyxira's voice carried a note of longing that made Damon's chest tighten. I am what I am, Damon, a killer. These hands have taken so many lives. Without thinking, Damon reached out and took her hands in his. Her skin was warm, softer than he had expected, despite her warrior's calluses. These hands also chose not to kill me, he said. These hands helped me walk when I was injured. These hands can create as easily as they can destroy. The heat of connection, the touch of his hands on hers, sent shivers through Nyxira's body.
Ouch.
No one had ever touched her with such gentleness, such reverence. In her world, physical contact was either clinical or violent. Its tender exploration of fingertips against skin was entirely foreign and completely intoxicating. Damon, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't understand what is happening between us. I think it's called falling, he replied, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. And it's terrifying and wonderful and completely insane. Faces were inches apart now, the magnetic pull between them undeniable. Nyxira's breathing had quickened, her violet eyes locked on his lips. The alien markings on her skin seemed to pulse with an inner light, responding to her elevated emotional state. In my culture, intimate contact between unmatched individuals is forbidden, she said, though she made no move to pull away. We're not in your culture, Damon reminded her, his voice husky with desire. We're not in mine either. We're somewhere between the stars, where the only rules are the ones we make. When their lips finally met, it was like the collision of two worlds. Nyxira's mouth was soft and warm, tasting faintly of exotic spices. The kiss was tentative at first, an exploration of unknown territory, then deeper as passion overcame caution. Her hands fisted in his shirt while his tangled in her silver hair. They broke apart breathless, foreheads touching as they shared the same air. The cave suddenly felt too small to contain the energy crackling between them. This is madness, Nyxira breathed. The best kind, Damon agreed. Enemies at the gates there. Moment of intimacy was shattered by the distant whine of approaching aircraft engines. Nyxira was instantly alert, her body tensing as her training reasserted itself. Through the cave mouth, they could see the distinctive shapes of Voidwalker pursuit craft cutting through the alien sky. They've found us, Nyxira said, her voice tight with apprehension. My people. They'll be tracking my biosignature. Damon struggled to his feet, reaching for a piece of twisted metal that could serve as a weapon. How many? 3 ships. Full strike team. Nyxara's expression was grim. Damon, you don't understand. They won't just kill you. They'll take me back for interrogation and reconditioning. Everything we've shared, everything I've begun to feel, they'll burn it out of my mind. The thought of losing what they had discovered together galvanized Damon into action, despite his injuries. Then we don't let them take you. Is there another way out of here? Nyxara's eyes lit up as she remembered the deeper chambers of the cave system. Yes, but it leads to the thermal vents. The heat down there would kill most beings. Most beings aren't desperate, Damon replied grimly. As the sound of the aircraft grew closer, they gathered their few possessions and headed deeper into the cave. The temperature rose dramatically as they descended, and soon they were both sweating, profusely. But they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that capture meant the end of everything they had begun to build together, underground. Sanctuary, the thermal vents created a hellish landscape of superheated rock and scalding steam, but they also provided perfect cover from thermal scanners. Nyxara's people would never think to look for them in an environment that should have been lethal to most life forms. They found a small alcove where the heat was manageable, though still uncomfortably warm. Sweat glistened on both their bodies. As they pressed close together, sharing water and trying to regulate their body temperatures. How long can we stay here? Damon asked, his shirt already soaked through. Until they give up the search, Nyxara replied. Could be hours, could be days. The heat was making them both lightheaded, and the enforced closeness in the small space was testing their restraint. Nyxara had removed her outer armor, revealing form-fitting undergarments that left little to the imagination. Damon found it increasingly difficult to focus on anything other than the graceful curves of her body. You're staring again, Nyxara. Observed, though, this time there was heat in her voice that had nothing to do with the thermal vents. Not to, Damon admitted. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. This time when they came together, there was no hesitation. The danger above them, the heat around them, and the impossible nature of their connection all combined to create a perfect storm of passion. Their kiss was hungry, desperate, filled with the knowledge that they might not have another chance. Nyxara's hands explored the hard planes of Damon's chest, while his traced the exotic patterns of her alien markings. Each touch was electric, sending shivers through both of them despite the oppressive heat. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. If we die down here, Nyxara whispered against his neck, at least I will have known what it feels like to be wanted for who I am, not what I can do. We're not going to die, Damon promised, though he wasn't sure he believed it himself. We're going to find a way out of this, and we're going to prove that love can exist even between enemies. The rescue that changes everything is past. In the sweltering heat before they finally heard the sounds of the search party retreating, but their relief was short-lived when a new sound echoed through the caves, human voices calling out an accented standard. Captain Cross. Captain, if you're alive, sound off. Damon's heart leaped. It was Lieutenant Torres from his ship, which meant at least some of his crew had survived. But the discovery also presented a new problem. How could he explain Nyxara's presence without getting her killed by his own people? Damon, Nyxara said urgently, you have to go. This is your chance to return to your people. Not without you, he replied firmly. We're in this together now. Your people will never accept. Me, I'm the enemy. Then we'll change their minds. Starting with Torres. Taking Nyxara's hand, Damon led her back toward the cave entrance. They emerged to find 3 human soldiers in environmental suits, scanning the area with detection equipment. Lieutenant Torres, a compact woman with graying hair and sharp eyes, spotted them first. Captain, she called out, then stopped short when she saw Nyxara. Her weapon was in her hands instantly, trained on the alien. Stand down, Torres, Damon ordered, stepping protectively in front of Nyxara. She's not a threat. Sir, that's a Void Walker, Torres said, her voice tight with tension. They're enemy combatants. This one isn't, Damon replied firmly. Her name is Nyxara, and she saved my life. More than that, She's helped me understand that maybe this war doesn't have to continue forever. The standoff lasted several tense moments before Torres slowly lowered her weapon. Her loyalty to her captain outweighed her prejudice, at least for now. Sir, we need to get you back to the ship. The Resilience found us 3 hours ago and is standing by for immediate extraction. Damon looked back at Nexira, seeing the uncertainty in her violet eyes. This was the moment of truth. Would she trust him enough to come with him into the heart of human space? Would his people accept her presence? The future of both their species might depend on the choices they made in the next few minutes. I'm not leaving her behind, Damon declared. Nexira comes with us, or I stay here. Damon, no, Nexira protested. I can't ask you to choose between me and your duty. You're not asking, he replied, taking her hand. I'm choosing. And I choose you. I choose us. I choose the possibility of something better than endless war. After a long moment, Torres nodded reluctantly. Yes, sir, but I hope you know what you're doing, Captain. Bringing her aboard is going to cause waves all the way. Up to command. Let them, Damon said, pulling Nexira close. Some waves are worth making. The journey back to human space aboard the Resilience was tense and complicated. Nexira was confined to secure quarters, not as a prisoner, but for her own protection from crew members who viewed her with suspicion and hostility. Damon spent every free moment with her, their relationship deepening despite the uncertain circumstances. Admiral Harrison, the gruff commander of the Resilience, was less than pleased with the situation. Captain Cross, he said, during their private meeting, you've put me in an impossible position. We have a Voidwalker assassin aboard my ship, and you're asking me to treat her as a refugee. I'm asking you to see her as I do, Damon replied. As a person who chose peace over war, understanding over hatred, she could be the key to ending this conflict. Or she could be the perfect spy. Feeding information back to her people while playing on your emotions, Harrison countered. How? Do you know this isn't all an elaborate deception? The question had haunted Damon during their journey. But every moment he spent with Nexira reinforced his certainty that her feelings were genuine. The way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, the vulnerability she showed only. To him, the passion in their stolen kisses, none of it could be faked. Because I know her, Damon said simply. She knows me. What we have is real, Admiral. Not real enough to risk everything for. Meanwhile, in her quarters, Nexira was struggling with her own doubts. Cut off from her people, surrounded by those who viewed her as an enemy, she had only Damon's word that they would accept her. The weight of her past actions pressed down. On her, every human life she had taken a barrier between her and any possible future in this new world. When the door chimed and Damon entered, while she was standing by the viewport, watching the stars stream past as they traveled through hyperspace, he approached slowly, reading the tension in her posture. Second thoughts, he asked gently. Third and fourth thoughts, Nexira admitted. Damon, I've killed members of your species. How can your people ever accept me? How can you? He turned, her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Because people change. Because you chose to change. Because the woman standing in front of me is not the same person who held a blade to my throat on that moon? But I am, she whispered. Those deaths are part of me forever. Then we'll carry them together, Damon replied, pulling her into his arms. Your past doesn't define your future, Nexira. Our future? Their kiss was soft, tender, full of promise and hope, despite the uncertainty ahead. When they parted, Nexira's violet eyes were bright with unshed tears. I love you, she said, the words foreign on her tongue but feeling more true than anything she had ever spoken. I love you too, Damon replied, and that love is going to change everything. Out. The Council wore their arrival at the Terran Defense. Force headquarters on Station Prime created an immediate sensation. Word of the alien aboard the Resilience had spread through the command structure, generating heated debates about protocol, security, and the potential implications of Damon's actions. The emergency council session was packed with senior officers, politicians, and military strategists, all eager to see the infamous Voidwalker who had captured a human captain's heart. Nexira entered the chamber with her head held high, her warrior's pride intact despite the hostile stares directed at her. General Patricia Kane, the stern commander of the Terran Defense Force, called the session to order. "We are here to determine the status of the alien known as Nexira and to address Captain Cross's actions in bringing her into human space. Captain, you may begin." Damon stood, his dress uniform impeccable, his bearing confident despite the career ending nature of what he was about to propose. "General, honored members of the Council, I stand before you today, not just as a military officer, but as someone who has seen the possibility of peace between our species." He gestured to Nexira, who rose gracefully beside him. "This woman saved my life when she could have easily killed me. She chose understanding over duty, compassion over conditioning. She represents the hope that this war can end not with the destruction of one side or the other, but with mutual understanding and cooperation. She also represents a security risk of unprecedented proportions," interjected Admiral Beck from the Intelligence Division. "How do we know this isn't an elaborate infiltration scheme? How do we know she won't transmit everything she learns back to her people?" "Because she severed all ties with the Voidwalker hierarchy," Damon replied. "She's been declared a traitor by her own people for refusing to kill me. She has nowhere to go except forward with us." Nexira stepped forward, her voice clear and strong, despite the hostile audience. "I will not pretend that my presence here is not problematic. I have taken human lives in service to my people's war machine. I cannot undo those actions, but I can dedicate the rest of my life to preventing others from making the same choices I was forced to make." "Pretty words," said General Kane. "But what guarantee do we have of your sincerity?" "You have my word," Nexira replied simply. "And you have the fact that I am willing to share everything I know about Voidwalker operations, tactics, and strategic planning information that could save countless lives on both sides." The council erupted in heated discussion. Some members saw the strategic value of having a defector with access to enemy intelligence. Others viewed her as an unacceptable risk. The debate raged for hours while Damon and Nexira sat together, their hands intertwined beneath the table. Love as a weapon of peace. During a recess in the proceedings, Damon and Nexira found themselves alone in a small conference room. The stress of the hearing was taking its toll on both of them, but their connection remained strong. "Whatever happens," Damon said, "I want you to know that meeting you, falling in love with you, it's been the most important thing that's ever happened to me." "Even if it cost you your career?" Nexira asked, studying his face for any sign of regret. "Especially then," he replied with a smile. "Some things are more important than career advancement. Love, hope, the possibility of peace between our peoples. Those are worth any sacrifice." Nexira's response was interrupted by the return of the council members. General Kane called for order and announced their decision. "After extensive deliberation, this council has reached a compromise. Nexira will be granted provisional asylum in human space, contingent upon her full cooperation with our intelligence services and her agreement to ongoing psychological evaluation. Captain Cross, you will be reprimanded for your actions, but will retain your rank and position, albeit with restrictions on your command authority." It wasn't everything they had hoped for, but it was enough. They were free to be together, to build a life that bridged the gap between their species. As they left the chamber hand in hand, whispers followed them, but so did looks of curiosity and even grudging respect. The embassy of Hart 6 months later. Damon and Nexira stood together on the observation deck of their new home, a specially constructed diplomatic station positioned at the border between human and Voidwalker space. Their love story had become a symbol of hope, inspiring peace negotiations that had seemed impossible just a year before. The station served as a neutral meeting ground where representatives from both species could interact without the weight of centuries of warfare. Nexira had proven invaluable in these negotiations, her unique perspective allowing her to translate not just languages, but cultural concepts that had previously been barriers to understanding. "The first trade delegation arrives tomorrow," Nexira said, leaning against Damon's chest as they watched the stars. 3 Voidwalker merchant vessels carrying cultural artifacts and scientific data. And next week, we host the first joint cultural exchange. Damon added, his arms around her waist. Human artists and Voidwalker star singers creating something new together. It was a miracle, really. What had begun as a chance encounter between enemies had grown into something that was reshaping the galaxy. Their love had not just survived. The trials thrown at it, it had flourished, becoming a beacon of what was possible when people chose understanding over hatred. "Do you ever regret it?" Nexira asked, turning in his arms. "Giving up your military career to become a diplomat?" "Never," Damon replied without hesitation. "I spent years fighting a war that seemed endless. Now I get to build a peace that will last for generations. Besides," he added with a grin, "the benefits package includes waking up next to the most beautiful woman in the galaxy every morning." Nexira laughed, the sound musical and full of joy. "Flatterer. Truth-teller," he corrected, capturing her lips in a kiss that tasted of starlight and promise. The wedding of worlds, their wedding ceremony, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Representatives from dozens of species attended, turning the diplomatic station into a celebration of unity and hope. Nexira wore traditional Voidwalker ceremonial robes in deep purple, while Damon was resplendent in the dress uniform of the Terran Defense Force. The ceremony itself blended traditions from both cultures, creating something entirely new. They exchanged vows under the light of twin suns projected onto the station's dome, symbolizing the joining of two worlds. When they kissed as husband and wife, the cheers from the crowd could be heard throughout the station. Admiral Harrison, who had become an unlikely supporter of their relationship, raised his glass at the reception. "To Captain Cross and his bride," he said, his voice carrying across the crowded hall, "who proved that love truly can conquer all, even the barriers between species." General Kane, equally transformed by what she had witnessed, added her own toast. "To the future, and to the hope that other couples will follow in your footsteps, building bridges where once there were only weapons." As the celebration continued long into the station's artificial night, Damon and Nexira slipped away to their private quarters. The past year had been a whirlwind of negotiations, ceremonies, and public appearances, but in their quiet moments together, they remained simply to people who had found love in the most unlikely of circumstances. "So, Mrs. Krause," Damon said as they entered their bedroom, "how does it feel to be married to a human?" "Perfectly natural," Nexira replied, beginning to unfasten her ceremonial robes. "How does it feel to be married to a former assassin?" "Like the luckiest man in the galaxy," he answered, helping her with the complex fastenings. Their wedding night was a celebration of their love, passionate and tender by turns. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a covenant between not just two hearts but two civilizations. As they lay entwined afterward, watching the stars through their bedroom viewport, both knew that their love story was just beginning. Legacy of love. 5 years later, the diplomatic station had grown into a thriving city in space, home to thousands of beings from dozens of species. The peace process that had begun with Damon and Nexira's relationship had expanded far beyond just humans and Voidwalkers, creating a new era of cooperation and understanding. Nexira had established a school for interspecies children, teaching them the arts of diplomacy and cultural exchange. Her star-singing performances had become legendary, creating sculptures of light that moved audiences to tears and inspired them to dream of greater unity. Damon led the Interspecies Defense Force, a joint military organization dedicated to protecting the peace they had all worked so hard to achieve. His strategies, informed by years of warfare and tempered by his love for a former enemy, had proven remarkably effective at preventing conflicts before they could escalate. Their own children, 3 beautiful beings who carried the best traits of both species, had become symbols of hope for the future. Young Stella had her father's determination and her mother's grace, while the twins, Orion and Luna, showed early signs of inheriting their mother's artistic abilities and their father's tactical mind. "Look at them," Nexira said, as they watched their children play in the station's central garden with dozens of other interspecies children. "A generation that will never know the hatred we were taught. They see only friends and playmates where we once saw enemies." That's the real victory, Damon agreed, his arm around his wife's shoulders. Not the battles we won or the peace treaties we signed, but the children who will grow up knowing that love is stronger than fear. As the twin suns set through the station's massive viewports, painting everything in shades of gold and crimson, the Cross family gathered for their evening meal. Around the table sat not just humans and voidwalkers, but Zentarians, Rigelians, and half a dozen other species, all united by the bonds of friendship and shared purpose. To unity, Damon raised his glass. To understanding, Nexira added. To love, their children chorused, their young voices full of hope and certainty and across the galaxy. On worlds that had once known only warfare, the words echoed in 1,000 languages, carrying with them the promise of a future where the children of former enemies could sit together at the same table, sharing food and laughter under the same stars. The alien Huntress who had once held a blade to a human throat had become a mother, a teacher, and a bridge between worlds. The bold reply that had changed everything had become a legacy that would last for generations, proving that sometimes the most powerful weapon of all is an open heart, willing to see the beauty in an enemy's eyes. The end.